Now, we're going to talk about testing. And because we're just talking about that, we'll start with KTM. They are testing different chassis today, and they have been testing them this morning. One of them is a carbon chassis, which is the chassis that Dani Pedrosa ran in the race. So here is that caveat about Dani Pedrosa's performance. Is he actually still absolutely flying, could still cut it at the top level, because when he was at his best, he'd be way better than the guys that are there now? Or is there really something in this chassis? Because they are good innovators, KTM, and they are proving to be quite successful with some of the innovations they're coming up with. And this could just be the next in the line of big things for them. Is this performance, did his carbon chassis just bring him up to like where Binder is? Of race distance kind of thing, with Brad still on the normal original chassis that they're running at the moment. Jack Miller's tested the carbon chassis this morning. Brad Binder hasn't yet at the time of recording, but he's come in over the morning session and he's gone, I think it's about 0.3 quicker than his qualifying time from the weekend. Now, I think that time was set on the carbon chassis because that's what we've been told. I've just watched Simon Crafar on the lunchtime report thing on YouTube. As far as I could tell, they just mentioned he's been running the carbon chassis. I think he's done that lap on the carbon chassis. So if he has, there could be a lot in this chassis. This could be a huge innovation for them and a huge step forward for them if he's already doing that. They've also run another version of a steel chassis this morning. He could have set the time on that. But I think there is something in this carbon chassis, and I think that evidence came through in Dani Pedrosa's performance as well. And as far as I believe, Binder will run that chassis this afternoon, possibly, so we may see where it is actually at, and I'm sure we'll get some feedback on it. We talk about every manufacturer in this test, but really there's not much else to talk about with the others. They are obviously got upgrades, they're trying things, but it's not going to be as big as maybe as a carbon chassis or the main story, which is Marc Marquez and Joan Mir with the Honda. We're hearing from this morning, it is what would be the direction of the 2024 bike, being described as maybe a 2023.5, but it is a completely new chassis and a completely new direction, running what I think is the current engine. It was interesting to hear Simon Crafar talk again when I just watched it now, that from what his understanding of it is, and I always appreciate his insights, he's very good on the technical level, Simon Crafar, that most of the grip that they're missing or what they want to find, 80% of that grip comes from the engine. The way the engine performs, the way it does everything. You're not going to find that gap through electronics, aero, whatever. So on that, how much can you really get out of this where they're testing all new parts but maybe not a new engine? I don't know. Whether he's just being coy or he's being completely honest with us, Marc Marquez this morning is saying that it's still a long way off. And I've got the quote here from him this morning. It's a bit different in the riding position. So the geometry is a little bit different as well. In the beginning, it was a bit strange, but lap by lap, as with a new bike, it becomes more natural. But in the end, the way to ride, the way to look for the lap time is similar to the current one. Of course, you can always expect more, but still it's the first impression and there are many new engineers in the garage. So now with that information, they must work and keep going. They need to work, still we are far. And that's the main quote that people are taking out of this, still we are far. They're reading into it as like, they're still way off. He's not happy with the direction they're going in, blah, blah, blah. But does seem a little underwhelmed. But at the same time, what can you expect from just a new chassis and just a bit of a change in the geometry and kind of a new kind of direction? The first time's always going to be a bit weird. And if Simon Crafar is right and 80% of where your grip is going to come from comes from the engine and you're still running the 2023 engine, then how big of a difference can you expect to see just from changing aero and chassis and geometry? So, and he goes in later on in the interview to talk about his future and he has different options, a couple of different options going forward, and he'll decide maybe after India or Japan or blah, blah, blah. We do think he has meetings with the factory or with the big bosses when he gets to Japan. So basically, I think it's too early to tell. And I think he would probably know that it's too early to tell whether that bike's going to be a success or not. It could be a cracker, but you've got to get used to it. You've got to get used to the way you ride it and the way you find your lap time and the way it feels and the riding position and all that stuff. And you're not going to know until you get the new engine in it, are you? So unless he's waiting for Valencia to see if they put, but by that point it's too late. You're going to have to have either said you're staying or you're going to have to have signed with someone else by that point. So he's going to have to just take a punt on him, or he's going to have to abandon. But he'll have to make that decision based on the knowledge he gets from today and maybe a discussion with the big boys at the head office there, if they can assure him that they're bringing something or bring people in that can do something, which is, I think, the bigger point. I've got loads of other videos that you might like, so you can click on one of them here, and we will see you on the next one. Take it easy.